Good Tuesday afternoon, guys. Jerry Miller on the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. A glorious day to be above the mud, live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. We are presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary next to Rapture on the downtown mall. Skooma Boutique Dispensary, David and his team have certificates of analyses for everything in the store. CBD, Delta 8, they have stuff for pain management, for relaxing, for sleeping through the night, helping you with anxiety. Skooma Boutique Dispensary on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall. A lot to cover on today's show, and if you would like to interact with today's program, leave your thoughts, comments, and perspective in the comments section on any of the social media platforms you are watching upon, and we will relay those thoughts, comments, and perspective on air. Alex Urpí will join us on the show in about 25 minutes to talk Wall Street, to talk the divide between Main Street and Wall Street. I'll tell you what, minimum wage expectations are going up, up, up. These minimum wage expectations undoubtedly will have an impact on small businesses and mom and pop outfits across the country. A lot to cover with Alex Urpí in 24 minutes, but before we get to the CEO, Alex Urpí, we'll talk Mayor Walker sharing internal documents over the weekend. We will talk the Delta surge. Let's cut to the chase. College football has started. Pro football starts this coming week from a regular season standpoint. You just had the Labor Day weekend behind us where families got together for cookouts and pool parties and steak dinners. The Delta variant will surge over the next 30 to 45 days. We will analyze how that's going to impact Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia. One thing to consider, Albemarle County is at capacity with its virtual schooling right now. So parents looking to pivot from in-person to virtual to protect their kids are going to have to go on a waiting list. A waiting list. That story in a matter of moments. 48% of renters across the country, nearly half of tenants residential across America, believe home ownership is not for them because of surging and rising prices. We'll analyze that topic on today's show. We will also talk college football and college star athletes and how their naming rights, their likeness, is being utilized to drive seven-figure revenue streams for 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-olds across America. We'll take a deep dive on UVA football. The Wahoos opened with an impressive victory against William & Mary. They were 30-plus point favorites, depending on where you do your gambling. Brendan Armstrong is an absolute beast. The Wahoos have the Fighting Illini of Illinois in Scott Stadium on Saturday, and already UVA is a 10-point favorite with an 11 o'clock kickoff at Scott Stadium. The game airs on the ACCN network. Let's talk the lead of the show over the weekend, which is customary for Mayor Walker. She utilizes her social media platform, specifically Facebook, to publish her perspective. And over the weekend, she published over 150 documents about internal Charlottesville Police Department surveys. So these are surveys with Charlottesville police, team members, rank and file, many of the surveys depicting the dissatisfaction that rank and file police officers had with the former police chief and leadership within the department. Remember, Chief Brackney, no longer an employee of the Charlottesville Police Department. She was fired last Wednesday evening by City Manager Chip Boyles. So Mayor Walker offers perspective, shares the internal documents on her Facebook page. Frankly, this is where I'm at with this. I am surprised, bewildered, a little confused, somewhat flabbergasted, and frankly, lacking understanding how an elected official, regardless of jurisdiction, any jurisdiction, how an elected official is able to voice and share internal knowledge and perspective from City Hall. I would have the same questions, concerns, and head-scratching wonderment if it was the mayor of Virginia Beach, the mayor of Norfolk, Williamsburg, Richmond, and Washington, D.C. sharing these documents. There is a level of privacy and discretion that accompanies an elected official's responsibilities. Just like a CPA cannot voice his or her client's personal financial information, just like an attorney cannot discuss his or her client's legal troubles or personal brouhahas, how can a mayor share and voice internal documents at such a prolific clip and frequency? This is not specific to Charlottesville's mayor. This is me talking in broad strokes. From my understanding, when you are an elected official, your duty first is to the municipality you serve, and publishing internal documents from departments under your influence and leadership control seems to be the definition of professional negligence. This is not the first time this has happened. There's a laundry list, a Kris Kringle long list of times she has done this. I find it curious at best, frustrating and flabbergasting at worst, and I question and ask in straightforward fashion, what do her peers, her fellow counselors, the city manager of Charlottesville, and the elected officials from other jurisdictions think of this behavior? If you're on the Board of Supervisors of Albemarle County, and it's no secret I am running for Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, would you not be hesitant to discuss internal happenings with your sister jurisdiction? Albemarle County and Charlottesville, brother and sister jurisdictions, they touch each other. If you're on the supervisor board, or if you're on the planning commission for Albemarle, the city of Charlottesville, or if you work for City Hall, would you not be hesitant to share information with the top elected official in the city of Charlottesville for fear that that person will share that information on social media? I would. I don't understand how someone who represents a jurisdiction is able to air the dirty laundry of the jurisdiction she represents. From my standpoint, it is the definition of unprofessionalism for an elected leader. And I will leave it at that. Your thoughts. Should the mayor of any jurisdiction air the dirty laundry of the jurisdiction he or she represents in social media capacities? And if that dirty laundry is aired, what does that do for creating trust, accountability, approachability, likability with the professional totem pole that we call City Hall? Right? All right, next topic on today's program. I'm going to cut to the chase. The next 30 days, my prediction, will be the biggest surge of Delta and COVID Charlottesville, Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, and the country will have ever seen. We have a variant called Delta that's more contagious than the chicken pox and undoubtedly more contagious than the COVID pandemic of 2020. This past weekend alone, high school football all over America, all over the Commonwealth, all over Central Virginia, all over Charlottesville and Albemarle County on Friday evening. This past week alone, college football had packed stadiums. Scott Stadium was rocking on Saturday evening, rocking. Roughly 50,000 people, not a sold-out crowd, but damn near close to it, cheering on the Who's as they pummel William and Mary. It's interesting to me, and I'm a diehard UVA fan. I went to the school. I bleed orange and blue. My two favorite sports teams are UVA basketball and UVA football. It's interesting to me, and it's undoubtedly a catch-22, that we can go to Scott Stadium, we can drink beers and ciders and wine in Scott Stadium now, unmasked. We can scream and cheer on our Who's in very vocal capacities with people sitting in seats next to you, 6 inches apart. We can put our arms on each other's shoulders and sing the good old song after Brennan Armstrong accounts for 4 touchdowns in the win over William and Mary. We can do all this cheering and all this applauding and all this supporting of our program. We can do it without a mask on. Yet a little boy and a little girl in elementary school must wear his or her mask from the beginning of the school day to the end of the school day, and even catch some heat if they take their mask down to eat some food at the cafeteria. 50,000 people can hold each other after a touchdown and rock in unison to the good old song, but an 8-year-old will be reprimanded by a principal, a vice principal, a teacher, an administrator if a piece of cloth slides down his or her nose. Explain that to me. The only explanation, my friends, is money. 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 College football accounts for tens of millions of dollars, hell, $100+ million when it's all said and done. Hell, when you include the impact on local GDP, on local economies across America, UVA football, I bet you $500 million of impact on Charlottesville, Albemarle County, the University of Virginia, UVA, the school itself, from the start of the season to the end of the season. Money. But an 8-year-old in 2nd grade learning arithmetic, when the mask slips down his or her nose in the classroom, is chastised. That, my friends, is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy at its finest. And that, my friends, puts in perspective what turns this world around. And it's the almighty dollar. My prediction, the next 30 days will be the most difficult surge for us here in Central Virginia that we have seen since March of 2020 of last year. High school football, college football, a Labor Day weekend, children in full force at schools. Those 4 factors translate into a surge of proportions we have yet to realize. I say this not to scare, I say this to prepare. I'll repeat it again. I say it not to scare Instead, I say it to prepare. When our mindset and our expectations are in check, we can manage what's in front of us a bit easier. Now we'll take it a step further. Albemarle County Public Schools, virtual education is at full capacity. I will repeat it again. Students in Albemarle County schools, capacity when it comes to virtual education. Albemarle County Public Schools allotted 25 educators and 1 principal to operate the Albemarle Virtual School Division. Albemarle County Public Schools have said these classes are at complete capacity. And now we roll out the waiting list. This waiting list, if you are trepid, concerned, worried, apprehensive, get on it now. Reach out to the school division ahora. Because the longer you wait, especially as these cases and hospitalizations uptick, the deeper and longer this waiting list will become. Ahora mismo, for that waiting list, if you want your kids to learn virtually in the public school system of Albemarle. The next topic on today's program, I'm going to show you a price point. If you could put it on screen for us, it's the Downtown Mall storefront. That's for rent, Judah. The old spectacle shop. Next to Lynn Goldman Elements, the jewelry store. It's the link from Craigslist. If you could put that on screen, that would mean the world to me. Thank you, sir. I'm going to give you an indication of commercial price points for a storefront on the downtown mall. I believe this is now Terry McAuliffe's campaign headquarters for Charlottesville. It's a short rent. The election's in November. A pop-up, if you may. Joe Geek owns this storefront. I purchased the I Love CVille studio from Joe Geek, the former trainer of the UVA football team and one of the most prolific commercial landlords in Charlottesville, Virginia. I did a deal with Joe Geek to buy this storefront in the Macklin building. I own most of this building on Market Street. Joe Geek owns a lot of real estate on the downtown mall. Look at the screen. Everyone, look at the screen. Look at the screen now. Look at the screen. Look at your screen. 1,984 square feet, less than 2,000 square feet. The monthly price point, $2,480. So we'll round to even numbers for the sake of conversation. You can get a 2,000 square foot storefront on the downtown mall, the former home to the spectacle shop on the downtown mall. And that 2,000 square foot storefront on the downtown mall has a monthly rent of $2,500. 2,500 B's, 2,500 Bones, 2,500 Dolores. This storefront, the home of Terry McAuliffe's campaign headquarters between now and the end of November. William Rice, the listing agent, the representative of Joe Geek. This, my friends, viewers and listeners, 2,000 square feet for $2,500 a month is the most affordable price point for a commercial storefront on the downtown mall. $2,500 a month for 2,000 square feet. You will not find one more affordable, you won't find a cheaper price point than that on the downtown mall. The storefronts up the mall, closer to the Whiskey Jar, where the Code Building, the center of developing entrepreneurs, the price per square is significantly higher than this. I know this because it's the business I'm in, one of the three. We have 24 tenants on our roster. You have a couple of businesses that are opening in downtown Charlottesville. You have a mattress company, a women's clothing store, each opening on the downtown mall. If you have yet to walk by the Center of Developing Entrepreneurs, the former Ice Park, my wife and I did it this weekend. It is an incredible building. Wolf Ackerman, the architects behind the Code Building. Joffrey Woodruff, the money behind the Code Building. Joffrey, the hedge fund titan, the founder of QIM, Quantitative Investment Management, literally across the street from the I Love CVille studio. I encourage all of you to take a stroll, a walk, a jog, a run, a brisk trot around the Code Building. It is approaching the finish line of construction, and it is a marvel of tremendous proportions. Storefronts on the Whiskey Jar, Code Building, movie theater side of the mall, the higher trafficked side of the mall, much more expensive. Storefronts on the pavilion side of the mall, the quieter side of the mall, more affordable. The storefront I just highlighted, Judah Wickower, if you can get it on screen again, our North Star and director of the program. This storefront, the most affordable one you will find in downtown Charlottesville, $2,500 a month for 2,000 square feet, roughly. Some knowledge for you. Next topic on today's program, Alex Urpí, 4 minutes away. If you have a question for the Chief Executive Officer of Emergent Financial Services, and Antonio Banderas look-alike, Antonio Banderas during Zorro times when he was wooing the beautiful Catherine Zeta-Jones. That's you, Alex Urpí. He will join us in 4 minutes on today's show. Here's a demoralizing story. A truthful story, a story that'll offer some perspective. 48% of renters in America do not think they will ever be able to buy a home. Lending Tree did a survey, and this survey found 48% of tenants fear they will never be able to buy a home in their lifetime because of surging home ownership price points. The 48% was predominantly in the Gen X and millennial demographic. This is a demographic that is entering its peak earning years. Gen Xers and millennials entering their peak earning years. We know the middle class depends on home equity as a source for wealth and retirement income. You pay off your mortgage, you have an asset free and clear. When it's time to retire and you're an empty nester, you sell your crib. When you sell your crib, you walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. That money is utilized as you downsize for retirement. Very straightforward. We have a predicament that we must identify. I chatted about this on Real Talk with the distinguished gentleman, Keith Smith. I'll paint a picture for you. I will do my best Vincent van Gogh. Interest rates at historically low, generationally low levels. 3% or under if your credit's good. Existing inventory, houses that have been built for a while, at generational and historic lows. New construction, well behind where it's supposed to be from a production and output standpoint. The University of Virginia admitting more students into school than ever before. Those students need somewhere to live. It's called houses in Charlottesville. Townhomes, condos, and apartments in Charlottesville. The University of Virginia hiring more people than they've ever hired before to accommodate the additional students they're admitting into Thomas Jefferson's University. Local jurisdictions have so much red tape for the new construction process that 24% on average of a new home's cost is tied to BS paperwork and bureaucracy and red tape. Buyers flooding suburban areas like Charlottesville and Albemarle County at clips and frequencies like we've never seen because they can work from internet service providers in their basement while maintaining their big city income. These same buyers sold their tiny town homes in areas like Georgetown, McLean, Arlington, and D.C. for top dollar and came to CVille and Albemarle County with bags of money. They utilized these satchels of dinero to purchase the little inventory on the market, cannibalizing and knocking out and pushing out the local buyer. My friends, my family, the viewers and listeners of this fine talk show, this predicament we are in will not resolve itself anytime soon. And when LendingTree releases a macro survey that stipulates 40% of renters, of tenants, most of them millennials, most of them Gen Xers, and these 48% of millennials and Gen Xers say home ownership is not in our future, in our lifetime. That, my friends, is a troubling trend. A troubling trend. Two more topics before we get to the Antonio Banderas lookalike. Antonio Banderas circa Zorro and Catherine Zeta-Jones. What a beautiful, beautiful lady. And that lookalike is Alex Urpí, the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. College players today are making seven-figure salaries. I'm going to relay a story to you, okay? Georgia quarterback, Bulldogs, Georgia Dogs, Athens. Georgia quarterback JT Daniels signed a six-figure deal to use his name, image, and likeness on football trading cards. UNC, Chapel Hill quarterback Sam Howell and JT Daniels have both partnered with Super Glow trading cards to create roughly 24 different designs for each player. The arrangement will pay each quarterback $100 for every card they sign. If they John Hancock their name on a card, they get a Benjamin, a C-note. And a 50% royalty fee for every card that is sold that embodies their John Hancock, their name, image, and likeness. Sam Howell is playing college football. JT Daniels is playing college football. These two quarterbacks are expected to make 7 figures plus from this trading card deal. These cards range in price from $15, the entry point, to $1,000 for the cards that have a piece of each quarterback's high school jersey integrated into the individual card. Aficionados of trading cards are scooping up these college player football cards with the hope these individuals, these athletes, these stars get drafted into the National Football League, become the next Tom Brady, and then you have arguably the rookie card before the rookie card. You know what the rookie card before the rookie card is? The card that comes out while the kid is in college, not during the first season of the National Football League. This image, likeness, and naming rights opportunity will cannibalize the rookie card. That's the card that comes out the first year of professional sports. Who wants the card that comes out the first year of professional sports when you can get the card that comes out the first year the kid is in college? Freshman. Ohio State starting quarterback, a freshman. Deion Sanders is at Jacksonville State. I'm going to look real quick. Deion Sanders is the head coach of Jacksonville State University. His son, the quarterback, one of the top prospects to ever commit to a historically black college, signed a naming rights and likeness deal. He's a freshman at Jacksonville State University. He's got a six-figure deal for his naming rights and likeness. The rookie card before the rookie card is the freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year card, and it's not the first year in the pros card anymore. Antonio Banderas, Alex Urpí will join us in 30 seconds. Alex, I'm running behind. I'm hoping my kind praise of you being a lookalike to Antonio Banderas will offer some forgiveness to me being tardy for our interview, mi amigo. UVA football pummeled William & Mary over the weekend. I know what you're going to say. It was William & Mary. It's the first game of the season. You can't put too much into it. I will say this. I think to a certain extent you're right. William & Mary looked outclassed. They were out physicalitied. They were just X and O'd on the gridiron on Saturday. Brennan Armstrong, an absolute beast. This guy is a tight end or an H-back playing quarterback. 21 of 31 through the air, 339 passing yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Brennan Armstrong, another 2 touchdowns on the ground. The Wahoos beat William & Mary. They beat them like a drum, 43-0, 1-0 on the season. And on Saturday, they host the Fighting Illini of Illinois. UVA is a 10-point favorite. Interestingly, the game kicks off at 11 a.m. on the ACC network. 10-point favorites for the Wahoos. We'll follow that line closely. The over-under at 55. I believe the last morning football game that UVA has played was the Continental Tire Bowl some years back when Al Groh was the skipper and the head coach of Virginia football. 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Alex, your brother, Nicholas Urpí, is calling some BS right there about Antonio Banderas. And Alex Urpí gives Nicholas Urpí the angry face emoji. I love seeing a little brouhaha amongst los hermanos. Alex Urpí, my day has been made. Thank you for making Antonio Banderas from Zorro and not from his other movies. Antonio Banderas from Zorro, mi amigo Alex Urpí. And the beautiful Catherine Zeta-Jones, and your masked sightline. Antonio, ¿qué pasa, amigo? How are you? I'm doing very well. He is the CEO of Emergent Financial Services, someone I'm proud to call a friend. His name is Alex Urpí. My friend, minimum wage.
I definitely appreciate it.
I will do it every single time from here on out, my friend. We needed a nickname for you, CEO. I think it might be Antonio Banderas now.
Zorro works. I'll take it.
Minimum wage expectations are going up and up and up. That means people taking entry-level jobs have expectations that these jobs should pay a hell of a lot of money. When we make living wage $15 an hour, what the collateral damage or the second-order effect, which I learned from you,
you're remembering,
Alex Urpí. The second order effect is the expectation is now this is the entry price point. My friend, the show is yours on this topic.
Oh, and it pushes up. One of the things people don't think about is it pushes up when you raise minimum wage. Part of what you're doing is you're also pushing up what people expect to be the starting wage for themselves, even when they're well above minimum wage. So in other words, if I'm making $22 an hour, and the minimum wage is $12, and now you bump up the minimum wage to $15. I'm going to go back to my employer and say, hey, I was making 22 when it was 12. I expect 25 now that that's 15. So what we're seeing here is an increase in it's called the minimum reserve wage. And what it means is when you survey people and say, what do you think the average starting salary should be in the entire country? People give you an answer. And that's up to now $68,000 a year is what people have been answering. And that's as high as we've seen since pre-pandemic, where it was about $71,000, and it took a big boost this past month, which is very interesting to see, because for all the anxiety that we can have about the jobs numbers that we're seeing, a number like that indicates to you people are biding their time, right? The labor force is saying, if I'm going to be induced to come back to work, you better pay me what I think is an appropriate wage. And that's a little higher now than it was a month ago. And so I think that's part of what we're seeing. It's why there's 10 million jobs out there, which is that are that they're looking for work. And that's 3 million higher than the 7 million that were out there in March of 2020, pre-pandemic levels. So there's a lot of open space there. And just to put that in perspective, that's higher than the number of unemployed Americans. And so you look at that and you say, there are people who can afford right now to wait. We'll see how much longer they can afford to wait since the extra unemployment benefits ended, I think, yesterday. But we'll see how much longer that stays. But at least in the past month, people are still pushing up what they think an appropriate yearly wage should be in this country, an appropriate yearly salary.
The unfortunate aspect of this trend, from my perspective, is as follows. The mom and pop business owner, the small business owner, which we know is the foundation of America, feels the biggest impact of this. The little disposable income they have is now potentially being allocated to higher wages. And Alex, I do not want anyone that watches the show not to think that I don't think Americans, Virginians, Charlottesvillians should not be paid a living wage. Everyone should get a wage that is fair to their skill set, that they can live upon within our city, and we know our city's expensive. But if mom and pops don't have the money to keep their lights on, they're going to fold their companies and the jobs are going to go away. The other concern I have is the digitalization of these openings. Let's take McDonald's. McDonald's, who employs a ton of people at entry-level minimum wage, they will pivot their models to ordering kiosks. We're already seeing it in restaurants, Golden Arches restaurants. And these kiosks will replace human beings on the employment chain. Your thoughts on this, Alex Urpí?
Oh, it's a classic conundrum because, and in fact, there are economists out there who believe that the number one beneficiary of increasing minimum wage actually isn't minimum wage workers, it's people higher up on the pay scale, because their leverage just increased because of the fact that the minimum wage increased. I think that's what we're seeing with this number, right? Because most entry-level people in minimum wage, you're not getting paid $68,000 a year. So a number like that reaching 68 is telling you people higher up on the pay scale are benefiting from a lot of what we're seeing. And I think you're exactly right. I think a lot of times there tends to be this notion that that small mom and pops are not paying enough, that you have to be able to compete. And the issue often is not whether you want someone to have a living wage, your employees. The issue is, are the wages growing organically? In other words, mom and pop are making more money. They can now afford to pay their employees more, right? Which is organic growth, right? You make more, mom and pop make more. They're like, well, Joey's been with us for 20 years. I'm going to pay him more. I'm going to pay everyone more. I'm going to pay the entry-level kid more because I'm doing well, versus the fear is that what we may be seeing is something that's not organic. In other words, a lot of the decisions we've made public policy-wise are putting a lot of pressure up on wages, but the mom and pop shops are not seeing any more business. And so if you take a small business owner and say, hey, your labor costs just went up 10, 20%, but your business sales are actually, maybe down 5%, you have a recipe for going out of business, because you, especially in certain industries like restaurants, where, come on, your margins, I mean, the profit margin, people a lot of times have difficulty understanding what a profit margin is. That's the percent that you make. And that you can make a good amount of money when times are good with a very small profit margin, a very small percent. But what that small percent, 1 to 2, 3% means is that if times become tough, now you're losing money on every single meal that you churn out. So that's the challenge with an industry like that, and that's where a lot of mom and pops are. My dad was telling me just earlier today, Manhattan, a major restaurant that used to serve clientele, small business, used to serve a lot of the Wall Street traders, went bankrupt because they just about a large percentage, I think around 40+% of the workforce there doesn't intend to come back in person. And so you do that to a small business owner, a restaurant owner, he's done, he's finished. Because that's the lifeblood of these small businesses. So I think we are going to see a lot of challenging times ahead for small business owners, because as much as wage pressure is good, especially for white collar workers that have a lot of leverage, that can go back to their bosses and say, I expect to be paid more. You can't really fire me because you can't find anybody else to do this work. That's a lot. As much as it's a great benefit to them to be able to go back and say, hey, look at what's going on, you need to pay me more, it is a very big challenge for small business owners who they're not like large corporations. They don't have a lot of extra cash right in the pocket, and they can't go to the market and issue stock. I mean, a small business owner can't go issue stock and bonds and try to get more money to pay his employees. He's stuck with what he or she has.
And that same small business owner is going to have a difficult time getting financing from banks as well. So let's talk about this from a production or output standpoint. Let's take the restaurant model. We have restaurants, and let's localize it as much as possible. Let's just talk Charlottesville without naming restaurants specifically, a restaurant specifically. So a restaurant in Charlottesville now, we know that demand is through the roof. UVA students are back. People are fresh off of quarantine. People are eager to get out and have some food and drink and enjoy some community with their friends and family at a restaurant, at a bar, at happy hour, whatever it may be. That restaurant is probably at its performance or production capacity now. Okay? It's not like it's going to be able to generate any more business. It's bursting at the seams. If the marketplace and if its employees expect more money from the restaurant, when the restaurant already is making as much money as it possibly can, the choices the restaurant has are as follows. A, raise the prices on its menu. B, fire or let go some employees so it could pay its A employees much better and let its B and C employees go. Or third, it can digitalize some positions. Either that's through, you're seeing a lot of ordering at restaurants now with QR codes, where it's take your phone out, scan a QR code, and do the order from your phone instead of a server coming to the table. Another example is eliminate wait staff and have the ordering happen at the window or the register, and then have the food picked up at another window. Then you're eliminating some front of the house staff. What is your prediction, Alex, of what's going to transpire here?
Well, I think we're going to see a few of those. I mean, part of the challenge is that ideally you would want those wait staff jobs to be entry level. In other words, kids in high school, people coming out, beginning the workforce, but with, they're looking at higher future wages in a different field, right? So you would have a lot of transition and turnover there. The challenge, though, is when people are relying on that, you're right, you do risk that in order to be able to pay certain employees more, they will cut back on others. And sometimes they often do it with flexibility. One of the groups that tends to be most adversely affected by wage increases is actually single mothers, because they are the least flexible employees, because they have to take jobs that have positions that the time is when they can drop off the kids and pick them up. They often has the least flexible hours. And many times employers, when they need to lay off people, they try to squeeze people into different time slots. And you can't do that with a single mom. So they often will suffer when that happens. They'll be the first to be let go. in situations like this. So that's always a challenge. And I think you're right, especially the larger restaurants that have a little more cash on hand, they may go that route of kiosk, an app, a way you can order on your phone, maybe order in advance, turning the customer in many ways into their own waiter. Go pick it up, go do it here. Order at this window, go pick up your food here, go sit down at your table, you're good to go. I just saved all this money from a person that would have hired to do that. But unfortunately, that's an entry-level job that now no longer exists. So you're hurting people that maybe would have been really great for that job, not as a long-term career, obviously, but for that short time over the summer or to help pay their way through college where that job would have been really helpful to have. So I think that's part of what we see as being the challenge here. One of those, like you said, those second order things that we often don't think about. Because you definitely want everyone to have good wages, right? But the question is, how are you getting there, right? And you want good wages in a stable environment where the jobs are still there, as opposed to good wages in an unstable environment where then the jobs disappear.
Alex Antonio Banderas, our guest here. Quentin Beckham has got some comments. We love you, QB. He says, is there a positive in that this could create stronger consumers for the businesses? And a stronger consumer potentially would mean one with more disposable income. Mm-hmm.
It depends on which is the stronger effect. That's always the balance when wages increase. To the point where it's a challenge for small business owners to keep people hired. So in other words, what's the greater effect? The people that are still employed have more disposable income, or the people who were previously employed now have no income? And so which of those is the stronger effect then determines whether consumers go out and spend more money. And so there's been a lot of studies on it, and there really has been no conclusive study, I would say, one way or the other to determine whether the effect of having workers who can demand more money outweighs the fact that you now have some workers who maybe would have been hired at $14 an hour but are not hired at all at $15 an hour, so their income is now effectively zero.
Here's an interesting comment here. I'll say this is a restaurant in city limits. Jerry, please don't use my name. Pass this on to your guest. If wages continue to uptick at my restaurant, we will do away with the front of the house staff altogether. We will use a pickup window concept like you described. We're barely making any money now. Breaking even is positive for us. And we're doing more business and working harder than ever before.
Yeah. No, that's the challenge I think we're going to see a lot of. And if you think about it, right, there's two issues there, right? One is obviously it's hurting the owner of the restaurant, right? The people that is employing someone. But also that front staff position now, if that goes, that's someone who was being paid a salary that is now not being paid at all. And so that's where you get that other side of it, because their consumer discretionary income may go from whatever it is now to zero. And so they're certainly not going to be going out and spending money anytime soon if that happens and the front has to go. And don't forget, I mean, part of this is also it's that perfect storm, because you've also got, my suspicion is that restaurants are also facing a lot of increased food costs, at least from what I have been seeing. So you're talking, your two major costs are cost of goods, cost of labor, and they're both going up at the same time when, like you said, there's only so much room to increase on the revenue side without increasing prices. And as you know, when you increase the price of something, people want less of it. So that's always a tricky, it's not as simple for restaurants as just saying, hey, let me jack everything up by 5% across the board. Because the law of supply and demand, when you make something more expensive, sometimes people think twice before going there.
The shocking thing about this is increasing wages and increasing minimum wage may have the exact opposite impact of what this intention has right now. I mean, if you increase wages, you could see jobs disappear. If you increase wages, you could see the businesses have to raise prices to accommodate the increased wages, which would mean their products and their food and their booze and the stuff they're selling is going to get more expensive, which means it's going to become a business for the wealthy. I mean, do the decision makers go this deep with the thinking?
So, sometimes they do. Sometimes I think they do not. There's that headline effect of saying, "Hey, look what I did for you," right? And also depends on, not to be cynical, right, whose votes they're looking for, right? But as if you're higher up on the employee pay scale, right? If you are that $70,000 person a year who can now capture a $75,000, $80,000 salary because minimum wage increased, you're probably quite pleased with the scenario that we're seeing here. And that's, I mean, this has been an age-old issue, and I think it comes down to, right, as entrepreneurs, as people that live in a community, we want the ideal wage growth that we want to see is organic wage growth. In other words, because of the fact that the community is doing better, there's so much pressure that restaurateurs can say, yeah, you know what, I'm doing better. Prices are up across the board. Cost of goods is not an issue. Right? I can actually afford to pay my employees more. And in fact, I'm going to do that because I don't want to lose them to another business. And so that's the kind of wage growth you want to see, right? Because that's healthy. I think part of what we're seeing now is an economy, let's face it, the fact that there's so many other things piled on here is an economy that is not it's not fully healthy, right? It may not be shrinking. We're not looking at recession. We're not seeing an economy that's going to fall apart or anything. But we're seeing signs of something that's not healthy with the way inflation has been going and the way this is creeping into, and I just think the way that the labor market is clearly a little bit out of whack, which you don't want to see just from a community perspective. And it's one of those things people often, I think we naturally as human beings understand when the normal economy is out of whack, how bad that is. In other words, when there's a shortage of a certain type of good, we intuitively understand that can't be good, right? The shortage of bread can't be good. Bread prices skyrocket. People have trouble affording to eat. We get that. Sometimes I think when there's a labor market shortage, our first inclination is like, well, that's not so bad. People can get paid a lot more. And then as you go down the road, and you look more carefully at what that means, you realize that a labor market shortage is not healthy for the economy either.
Alex Urpí, our guest guy, CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Quentin, you're doing well by us today. Another one from QB. He says, Alex, what was the cost for a financial services company before the rise of spreadsheets? So if the need for greater efficiency is inevitable, what is the path forward for people wanting to keep their standard of living? I always look at Germany and Japan and think of their focus on education and the move of technical jobs to those countries. Tuition at UC Berkeley used to be free. Now it's what, $40K per year?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, education, we just don't, I mean,
that's a different show.
That's a different show. I mean, because that has risen at multiple times actual inflation. I mean, that has skyrocketed beyond measure. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Germany and Japan are interesting examples, actually, because they did pursue a lot of those high technical skills. They pursued a lot of what you might call high quality good production. In other words, rather than trying to make money as a country selling a lot of cheap goods, aka, if you think of China, what China basically does now, right? Very affordable goods you turn on mass production. Germany and Japan are a little bit more the route of we produce higher quality things. We produce things with a lot of technical skill. Although they too, in recent years, are facing a lot of the similar challenges that we are. I mean, Japan has basically been mired in an endless recession for the past 2 decades, in many ways, because of I think demographic factors that we will one day face. So efficiency is excellent, right? It can't, in terms of the entire economy, it can't overwhelm other factors. But I think a great point made by Quentin there is that efficiency and technological progress are the number one driver of long-term growth, right? In other words, we can fiddle around the edges all we want in terms of saying, well, let's do this to try to get people to be paid more. Let's have more people that are in the country. Let's do this, let's do that, right? All these things have growth, right? More people means more consumers, means more growth. More higher wages means more spending, means more growth. But all those things are not the primary driver of long-term growth. That's innovation. So as long as you can have innovation, you can have that sort of long-term growth factor It really pushes your economy up. The moment that begins to go, right, or is not as prevalent, you then run into some major issues, and then you start running into the demographic factors that are plaguing Germany and Japan and other Western nations right now.
This is from Stephen Brown. Get ready, guys, for nothing but takeout windows in the restaurant business. With gasoline prices, with cost of goods, and labor now upticking, the restaurateur cannot afford sit-down service for much longer. You know what? There's some truth to that. The takeout model, where you have family and ownership managing the takeout model and pretty much taking away the jobs, then they can eliminate the cost of labor and keep the money within the family or within the ownership group. The takeout window, like, what is it? Is it Luce?
Luce is nothing but a little,
yeah.
It's literally a window. It's literally a window in the side of a building.
It's a window with the owner and one other team member managing the pasta business, and we know pasta is one of the highest margin businesses in the restaurant sector. Alex, you are a breath of fresh air, my friend. Today y mañana, Thursday at 10:15 a.m., what can we expect from you guys?
Today mañana is going to be a lot of fun on Thursday. So first we've got Chris. So Chris Martin, she's the baker, no bakery. She's the brainchild, the genius behind a lot of the great confections that you'll see at Guajiros, Miami Eatery. She's at other pop-up shops around Charlottesville. She's fantastic. She's on Instagram, known as Baker No Bakery, which is a fun little, I always love that fun little title. She's going to join us, talk about her business, just how she operates, how the interesting way that she works, and then we're going to have, afterwards, we've got two people from the Albemarle Ballet. We're going to have Veronica Pilar, she's the artistic director, and Nikki Torello, she's the executive director. So they're going to join us afterwards to talk about Albemarle Ballet. So I have two things very close to my heart, which is baked goods and ballet.
I love it, Antonio Banderas. Now we have a nickname for the CEO. We got Nicholas, the social media ninja. We got Xavier, the closer Urpí. We got Alex, Antonio Banderas, Urpi. Michael, you are next, my friend. I have not forgotten about you, Michael, on today's program. Alex, I cannot wait to see you guys on Thursday. You were missed last week. We will see you Thursday morning.
Yep, we're excited for it. We're excited to be back.
You have a good one. Great show today.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Susan Steinmart, the executive director of the Thomas Jefferson Community Land Trust, leaves a comment for us. We love you, Susan Steinmart. She says, I Love CVille. The Piedmont Housing Job Fair is happening in downtown Charlottesville. It's a precursor for all the good events to come with Friendship Court program expansion. Please pass the word along to anyone you know looking for a job. You guys get the word out better than anyone. Thank you, Susan Steinmart. I'll say it again. The Piedmont Housing Job Fair is happening now in downtown Charlottesville. I Love CVille. Please pass the word along. It's the precursor for all the good events to come with the Friendship Court program expansion. Susan, we are happy to help. Susan Steinmart, we love you on the I Love CVille Network quite a bit. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and viewers and listeners of all ages, whether it's YouTube, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Snapchat, TikTok, iTunes, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, ilovecville.com, anyhow or any way you are watching today's show. We're trying to bring approachable content to you on social media platforms across the board. Tomorrow we have former Charlottesville mayor, former Charlottesville city councilor, former state delegate David Toscano in studio on the I Love CVille show. David Toscano has a book that's been published in conjunction with the University of Virginia, and David Toscano will join us, and he'll sit in that chair, and we'll spend 45 minutes with him. Thursday, Yaz Washington, Charlottesville City Council candidate, will join us on the program. The show is about approachable content, complicated content that is made approachable and is positioned, published, and aired on the social media platforms we spend the most time upon. That's the whole concept of the I Love CVille show. For Alex, Antonio Banderas, Urpi, for Judah, the North Star Whitcower, My name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille Show. Hasta luego.